In January 1993, a respected lawyer from Amarillo, Texas, vanished without a trace. Known for his devotion to family and his role as a pillar of the community, his disappearance stunned everyone who knew him. Years later, his body surfaced 1,600 miles away in Washington state. Discovered not by traditional police work, but through an online search by a persistent detective using Google. The identification closed one chapter, but opened an even darker one. What led him to Washington, and how did he fall victim to a fatal hit and run? Welcome to Without a Trace. I'm your host, Jalen. Every file holds a mystery. Every story deserves to be heard. This is David's story. David Lewis was born on December 11, 1953, the second of two children to Herschel and Esther Lewis. He was raised in the small town north of Amarillo named Borger, Texas. David graduated from Phillips High School in 1972. Then he attended Texas Tech, graduating with a degree in political science. Following that, he obtained a law degree from Texas Tech University Law School in 1979. David graduated with honors and was a member of the National Honor Society. In 1982, David married his wife, Karen, and the couple had their only child, a daughter named Lauren, a couple of years later. The family resided in Dumas, Texas. David was a practicing attorney in Amarillo and the counties of Wheeler, Sherman, and Moore, as well as an instructor for the Amarillo College. He was a member of the State Bar of Texas and the American Bar Association. David was well known within his community as a dedicated family man and charity volunteer, serving as a member of CASA and Moore County Child Protective Services Board. He was an organizer and advisor of the Moore County Teen Court and was on the board of directors for the Dumas County Education Advisory Council, as well as a district chairman of Golden Spread Council of the Boy Scouts of America from 1986 to 1993. Along with this, he was an active member of Dumas Chamber of Commerce, Dumas Noon Lions Club, Dumas Discovery Center board member, former president of the Dumas and Moore County United Way, and chairman of Safe Place, Inc. He was an active member of the First Baptist Church, teaching the adult Sunday school class, and he was an active member of the Sanctuary Choir and an adult ensemble. In 1986, David was elected as the judge of the Court at Law in Moore County. 4 years later, he left that position to run, unsuccessfully, for the 69th District Court judgeship. David then returned to private law with an Amarillo firm and taught government classes at Amarillo College. On January 28, 1993, David left work at his law firm around noon, saying he was not feeling well and would be going home. He then purchased gasoline with his credit card that afternoon. He taught his class at the college that evening until 10 p.m. The next day, a Friday, David's wife Karen and their daughter Lauren left for a weekend shopping trip in Dallas. David did not accompany them as he wanted to watch his favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, play in the Super Bowl, their first appearance in the NFL championship game in 14 years. Karen and Laura did not see David before they left home. David was reportedly seen at Amarillo Airport by a member of his church. They said he looked to be in a rush as he hurried through the Southwest Airlines terminal. David wasn't carrying any luggage. Later that day, his car was observed by a police officer to be parked outside of the Potter County Courthouse at 10:30 p.m. On Saturday, January 30th, 1993, David's car was no longer parked in front of the courthouse. Instead, a neighbor reported seeing it in the driveway of the Lewis home. Police say that David was seen during the day, but did not elaborate regarding where or when he was seen. $5,000 was deposited into his bank account by an unknown person. On Sunday, January 31st, David's car was seen by the deputy sheriff, again parked outside the courthouse. The deputy sheriff noted that a man matching David's description was standing across the road from the car and seemed to be taking photographs. At approximately 5:15 p.m., the VCR started to record the Super Bowl. This had to be done manually as the VCR could not be programmed in advance to start recording at a set time. David's wife and daughter returned home after the Super Bowl ended. Expecting to find David waiting for them, they were surprised to find the lights and TV left on, with David nowhere to be found. The VCR was still recording as the tape had not yet run out. 2 freshly made sandwiches were found in the fridge, and David's wedding ring and watch had been placed on the kitchen counter. Karen went to bed, assuming that David had gone to watch the Super Bowl with a friend or went to his office to work for a bit. However, a day later, there was still no sign of David, and his missed appointments started to rack up. His wife went to the Amarillo Police Department to report her husband missing. Police found no signs of a struggle or anything disturbed in the house that would point towards a burglary or foul play. It appeared as though David had simply slipped out for a while. Meanwhile, at 10:30 p.m., some 1,600 miles away in Yamaka County, Washington, a scene was beginning to unfold. Several people spotted an individual on Route 24 near Moxie, several miles from Yamaka Airport. Motorists turned around to stop other drivers to warn them of the individual, but when they turned back, they found the individual deceased. Police arrived to find a body belonging to a middle-aged man. He had been dressed in military-style clothing and work boots. An examination found no traces of alcohol or drugs in his system. The man had not been carrying any identification when he was killed, and so his identity was unknown. Investigators believed him to have been the victim of an accidental hit and run, and a Chevy Camaro was seen leaving the scene around the time of his death. Unaware of the discovery, the investigation into David's disappearance continued. The day after John Doe's body was found in Washington, the investigation into David Lewis's disappearance in Amarillo heated up. Authorities had found David's red Ford Explorer outside the Potter County Courts building. Under the mat on the floor, police found David's house and car keys. His checkbook, credit cards, and driver's license were inside the car and the usual place where David kept them. The discovery of David's car and these items have given police no real answers. The investigation does, however, lead police to an interesting piece of information. Sometime before his disappearance, David had informed his wife that he believed he had been in danger. He wouldn't, however, tell his wife any information about the threats he believed to be on his life or what the cause of the danger was. David's family believed his disappearance may have been linked to his work as an attorney, a disgruntled client or individual who held David accountable for something that happened as the result of a case and wanted to exact revenge on him. David was due in Dallas a week after his disappearance for a deposition in a conflict of interest case between his former law firm and a wealthy client. David had told his father that he had no intention of covering up any wrongdoings by his former firm and was going to tell the truth, whoever it hurt. These possible leads, however, went nowhere, and it wasn't until later that investigators made their most significant discovery: 2 plane tickets purchased in David's name around the time of his disappearance. The first ticket, purchased on the 31st, was a ticket from Dallas to Amarillo. Interestingly, this is the same journey David's wife and daughter made on the same day, when they returned home to find him missing. The second ticket, purchased a day later on the 1st of February, was a ticket from Los Angeles International Airport to Dallas. A taxi driver would later recall driving a man who looked like David from a hotel to the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. He said the man seemed nervous, had no luggage, and paid in cash from a large wad of $100 bills. In June 1993, Police admitted they reached a dead end in the investigation of David's disappearance. They closed the case, saying that the purchased plane tickets led them to conclude that David had disappeared on his own, despite there being no proof that he bought or used the plane tickets, rather than any of the hundreds of men called David Lewis who were living in Texas at the time. Then, in 2003, a detective from the Washington State Patrol became interested in solving long-cold missing persons cases. Using Google, Detective Patrick Dutter solved David's disappearance. In 2003, Detective Dutter read a newspaper series entitled Without a Trace about missing persons cases. He learned about the flaws in missing persons investigations, and particularly flaws in the National Crime Information Center computer system. Inspired by the thought that possible identities for unidentified victims may have fallen through the cracks, Detective Dutter turned to Google, which was fairly new at the time. Detective Dutter was particularly interested in the Moxie John Doe case. His search led him to find several missing Jane and John Does, and within a week, he found one who looked a lot like the missing man out of Texas, David Lewis. Despite this strikingly similar appearance, the detective was put off by the lack of glasses on the John Doe's body. After looking into evidence found alongside John Doe's body, he discovered that a pair of glasses had in fact been found. Now believing the connection between John Doe and David Lewis may be more than a coincidence, he reached out to Texas law enforcement with his findings. He later sent them items that could be used for DNA analysis, one of the boots the victim had been wearing, and a tissue sample preserved since 1993. David's mother provided her own DNA sample to test against the unidentified man. In October 2004, 11 years after he went missing, David Lewis was positively identified as the deceased man found on Route 24, 1,600 miles from home. Though John Doe had his name back, many questions still circle around what happened to David Lewis that weekend. It is still unknown why David traveled around 1,600 miles less than 30 hours after he was supposed to be watching and cheering on the Dallas Cowboys in their Super Bowl victory. No one is able to provide any answers as to what could have led David to Washington, a state to which he had no ties, and the nature and motivations behind the plane tickets purchased in David's name to remain a mystery. Thank you for listening to Without a Trace with your host, Jolynn. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into David's disappearance. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and follow Without a Trace on social media. Join me next week as I dive into another case.